Okay, sorry everybody if we just got separated there for a little bit. I think my Wi-Fi went down for a moment. I had to reconnect it, and so unfortunately, it looks like it cut that live stream, at its knees, and so I just had to throw it back up there. So, welcome back again. Very sorry, Mehdi. I was in the middle of kind of going through some advice for you. Hopefully you're back again, guys. Very sorry that that drop happened. I'm not quite sure what happened. I do know that it had something to do with my internet. So your system isn't bad. You can handle 2021, uh, and there's lots of useful resources out there. If you're a Creative Cow user, hop on there and drop that question into the Adobe After Effects forum, and I'll give you a breakdown of that. But if you guys are hopping back on, thanks for popping back over. Very sorry that that live stream just got interrupted, but here we are. Less than 8 keyframes. We've got this animation here using Fire Blast from Stock 3D, and we've got that control now. And it was very fast. And so what we're going to do next is we're going to get ready for that next punch. Okay. So you can actually rename this comp without it breaking anything. So we're just going to select it, hit the Enter key, and we'll name this Punch 1. Okay. And then I'm just going to take and drag that comp we put down in there earlier, and we're going to put it underneath punch 1. And the reason why we're going to put it under punch 1 is because it's behind that first fire blast. And so dropping down this control here, going into essential properties, we'll once again turn off the wizard tool. We'll drop down the fire blast setup, and we're going to pick a fire blast. And so let's go with fire blast 3 this time. We'll slide this in our timeline to get it to line up. And it looks like in this case, the punch is coming directly at the camera. So we're going to slide this orientation control over to 90 degrees. Okay, and so now you guys see it's pointed at our camera. Okay, so with that being said, we're going to slide it ahead in time. We're going to find that moment in our video where the fist is fully extended, and we'll just shut off punch 1 here so we can see what we're doing a little bit better. And we're going to find a point in time where the fire blast should have fully come into fruition. And we're just going to go ahead and drop our transform tab down. We'll scale this up a tad, I think, and we'll set a keyframe for its scale and its position, and we're going to drag it over top of his fist. We're just going to center it up right there on his fist. And with those keyframes set, we'll just go back. We'll move it down here, go back again, just keep it on top of his fist until it disappears. And then we're going to just scrub forward in time until the smoke starts to turn black, or the fire starts to turn black. We'll scale this up real big. We'll maybe move it kind of upwards because it does have kind of a downward trajectory. And we'll check out what that looks like now. Not too bad. Let's go ahead and just do a RAM preview here real quick. I think one thing I might do is there at the beginning, it looks a little big. If I turn on the, if I turn off the preview mode here, not terrible, not terrible. But I think, yeah, we'll just go ahead and scale it down just a smidge, right? You guys have that control, so it's there to use. And we'll just make sure that our animation still lines up because we did change the scale. And looks good to go. So, in this case, 4, 5, 6, another 8 keyframes. It took like not even 2 minutes to get that one, out of the way. Okay. One thing I actually also might do, I think that would be kind of cool, is if I go to the end here and I set a keyframe for the rotation, and then I go back in time to right when the fire blast is emitting, and if we shift the anchor point here to the center using the pan behind tool, and I hit the W key and I rotate, let's just say, I don't know, 45 degrees. And we are, of course, going to just real quick need to adjust these earlier keyframes. No big deal. Takes a couple seconds. What we've got now, I'm going to have to come to the end and just pull it down. But what we've got now is there's rotation added to this effect, which gives it kind of a unique flair, right? So we can actually see that the fire is rotating as it comes at the camera. Just a little fun thing that I decided, hey, why not? Let's throw it in there. We'll rename this one Punch 2, hit enter, and we'll shut it off, and we'll get ready for the next part of it. And we've got this upward kick, and this is actually where things get fun. We're going to drop another version of that comp down into our window. We'll push it ahead in time a little bit. We'll drop down the essential properties drop downs right there under transform, and we'll shut off that wizard tool. And under Fire Blast setup, we're going to choose number 4. And what you guys see with this animation is it kind of has like an upward path before then jumping forwards and then eventually a little bit downwards. It's kind of like an arc. And so this is going to be really, really useful for creating the effect of a kick where his leg is flying upwards, and then at some point the Fire Blast is going to change direction and punch toward the camera. So with, essentially here with the animation kind of at its halfway point, we'll slide that orientation and we'll pick the angle that we want to use. And it's not right at the camera, so I don't need something as high as 90. We'll just go with the option right before it. And let's see here. I think we don't want to, have it start to move forward at the height of his kick. We want to keep the animation inside the frame and the boundaries of our video here. So this is going to be where I have the fire start to move forward. And so we're going to slide this kind of back in time until that moment where it starts to pitch forward. And so maybe about right here. Next, I'll drop down our transform controls, set a keyframe for scale and position, and we're just going to scale it up. That looks good. And we're just going to position it right there underneath his foot. Okay, and now we'll go back frame by frame. I'm using page down to do this, and we're just going to keep it with his foot until it's out of frame. That's good. And then we're going to just scrub forward in time until it starts to turn dark. About right there is good. We'll scale it up now and just maybe move it a little off to the side. And so let's see what that looks like. I'll just render out a little quick preview here. As you can see, even with not having the best system available to me, this is already looking real sweet. Guys, you will not get this out of normal stock footage. I can promise you that. You're going to be stuck with whatever angle and built-in things like sparks or whatever that the creator gave you, and you're going to probably drop $100 each time you do this. And so right away here, that upward kick, looking sexy, looking good. So we can move on now. You guys see that's 4 or 5. That's only 7 keyframes this time, right? And I would argue it's a little bit more of a complicated achievement to pull off because it's a kick. It's not your traditional punch. So we'll rename this kick 1. Okay, and we'll shut off the eyeball there to make it go away, and we'll drop down our next instance. And so the next one here, and then we'll go to the essential properties and turn off that wizard tool. We'll slide this, forward in our timeline, and let's just kind of check out what this next kick is going to be. It's this outside to inside kick, and so what I think would look real cool is if the Fire Blast became, full glory about right here, just to the right of the center of our frame, and have it cross over the center and exit somewhere here on this other side, right around the 1/3 mark. Okay, so we're gonna just go ahead and pick a Fire Blast we haven't used yet. So we'll drop down Fire Blast Setup. We'll choose Fire Blast 2. We'll slide this ahead so that you guys can see what this is gonna look like. Let me just zoom in here for you. Here is what that animation looks like. Also kind of an upward traveling Fire Blast. We are going to change the orientation to a little bit past 90 this time because we want it to move from right to left. So say like right there. And I don't want it to start here. I want it to start, a little bit further back. So we're just going to hit page up until his foot is where I want it. We'll set this the Fire Blast into position. We'll drop down our transform, scale, position keyframe. Actually, before we do that, let's just line up the animation here. Probably about right here is good. We'll scale it up now. And we'll set it right here next to his foot. And now I'm going to set a position and scale keyframe. I'm not too concerned about the rotation on this one. We'll go back. We're going to go ahead and move it down here now, and then out of frame, and we'll drop it down a little lower. And one thing that I want to make sure you guys, consider is, using the bergère, wings here, as I like to call them, on this line, this curve that represents the path that your asset is traveling in. What we're doing here is we're wanting to make sure it's nice and smooth, it's nice and rounded. And so once we get to this point, if we scrub forward in time, just as before, and we move that now over here, right? And we give it a nice rounded feel, okay? And we scale it up just like that, move it kind of into the center of the frame. Here's what we got. So we'll just play that back to make sure it's as smooth as I'd like it to be. Again, another 7 keyframe tidbit. Looks like Xenon FX Studios saying hey, and yeah. Thanks for tuning in, Xenon FX Studio. Thanks for checking this out. Lots of exciting things coming here to the Creative Cow live platform. I hope that you subscribe and continue engaging. And if you like this product, if you think it'd be a good, useful tool for you, you can check it out at stock3d.net. You get everything I'm showing you here for right now. It's 24 bucks and some change. So, pretty good value here. So we've got this animation done. We're just going to name it Kick 2. And hit enter, and I'll shut it off the eyeball there to make it go transparent and disappear, and we'll drag in and prepare. I'm just going to rename this ahead of time, Kick 3. And this is the final kick here. You guys see just how fast it was to be able to comp that into our scene, because we didn't have to cheat the orientation like you normally would, and that's what really makes this as useful as I think I could have made it. Again, this was a tool I made for myself to save myself time, and at some point I realized, hey, this thing is actually pretty powerful. So we're going to scrub forward in time, got that outside, inside, and then we've got this spinning back kick. And what I think I like to do here is just have one last fire blast come directly centered at the camera. We'll probably have it start, from here and have it move over. And so we're just going to kind of, push this forward in time, drop down our Fire Blast setup control, and choose Fire Blast 1. We're going to go with that 90-degree rotation. See how, the more you use this, the faster it actually becomes, I think. We'll chunk this forward in time until about, say, right here. We'll drop down our transform tools, scale, position, and move it into place where we want it. I'll scale it up a bit, right? And we'll go back frame by frame. Again, we're going to make sure that it's nice and curved. And we'll see how that looks coming into fruition. And I think what we'll do is we'll move it about right here, round that curve for us a bit. And then we're just going to go forward in time until, I hit the end key there. We're going to go forward in time until our Fire Blast animation starts to turn a different color. In this case, the camera cuts out, so we'll go about to this time in place. We'll scale this up real big, and we'll just center it right in the middle of our comp. And we'll give respect to that curve that we were working with here to make things nice and smooth. I think that's the most important thing here. And so we'll check out what that looks like. And that's like 6 keyframes right now. Actually, 8, excuse me. And it ends off the shot in fire and fury. I like the way that resulted. So we'll check out what that last one looks like. Very neat. All right, so let's turn these all back on and check out what the overall product looks like, or end result looks like so far. Guys, that was quick. Unfortunately, we did lose connection for a little bit, so you guys didn't see, kind of the first half there. But if I had to add up the total length of time that took to, position all these, working with less than 10 keyframes each time for position, scale, rotation, I think that, we've made good progress here so far. And for those tuning in, and if you've just popped in, essentially we've got the effects turned off with a toggle switch for each of these layers. And so it's not going to look as great as it's going to look once we turn those back on. So just bear with us there, because there's a time-saving tool built into this. That means you're only going to have to actually go in and adjust all the rest of those settings, the fire color and all that kind of stuff. That's the exciting part. It's coming up here. So stay tuned here as this last two animations finish off, and we'll get into that here. And I think that you guys will just be blown away. I hope so. I hope so, because I put a lot of hard work into this, and I wanted to share it with the world. That's why it's only 25 bucks right now. I know I know I sound cheesy, like I'm trying to push this thing, and yes, there is an incentive for me, using the cow to provide something useful, something engaging, give you guys the ability to, to ask questions and engage with me. If you guys have questions about visual effects, ask me, because I want to share that knowledge with you folks. All right, here it is. So one thing right now that I'm kind of bugged by this second one here. I think it's just moving a little too quick. So we're going to go here. If you hit the U key, that will drop down all of the keyframes that we set. And I think if I go to the end here and I just turn the scale down a smidge at the end, it won't have the impression that it's moving so quickly. I think I also might want to pay attention to make sure that it stays in the center of our scene there in the middle. So let's see here. Let's kind of do this. Let's blur out these curves a tad and just give it something smoother. Let's see what that looks like. I'm not in love with it. I don't know. I just think it's a little big. So we're going to click on the scale option here. If I hit this little back button, it's going to put us on one of those keyframes. And as long as they're all highlighted blue, if I scale it down, it's going to scale down in the same capacity for all of those other keyframes. I think that feels a little bit better. So we'll just settle there. I don't want to spend a ton of time. I am going to jump back over here real quick and check out the comments. I want to interact with you guys. Looks like Spunky Animation says, subscribe to you guys years ago because of your super helpful videos on After Effects, a goal I kind of gave up on. Glad to see you guys are still at it, and this might be something I pick up again. Well, Spunky, I do hope that you guys, or that if I can do one thing, and that's inspire you to pick up After Effects again, and to jump back at it. Again, now's the best time, if there's ever been a best time to do it. Everybody's been locked up and on lockdown because of the pandemic, and there's been nothing but time for people to pick up an old hobby or learn something new. And if I could do that or help you in that process, mission accomplished. We got Hakim Graphics. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Glad to see you guys back. Glad to see you're still here. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for engaging. Again, guys, feel free to jump in and leave some comments there. You do have to subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, but definitely jump on there and interact with us. I want to be able to answer questions. I want you guys to give me ideas of different tutorials or different things that you guys wish you knew how to do, and there just isn't something out there teaching you how to do it yet. I'd be happy to oblige. So, what's next? We got to turn on all these effects, right? So we're going to just go ahead here. Under the Essential Properties drop-down for each of these, we're just going to turn off our Fire Blast preview. And right away, that first punch, as you guys can see, just comes to life. And we're just going to go ahead and do that for each of these layers. There's a bit of a quicker way to do this, but we're just going to, do it this way here for the moment, for the time being. If you guys hear some people in the background, I do apologize. I actually own a movie theater. And so I've got some customers in the lobby, and they're playing arcades, and there's a movie getting out, and my computer is set up in the lobby, as silly as that sounds. So I'm not I'm not in the most tutorial-friendly location, but that's fine. We make do with what we've got. I bumped that down to third res here real quick. I'm going to just go ahead and export a preview with all of those effects turned on so you guys can see with the flip of a switch, over 120 different effects buried through all those nested compositions come to life now. And they look pretty darn good, if I could say so myself, right out the gate. But we're going to make some adjustments I think are necessary to really just sell the shot. And it'll give me a chance to show you guys all of the additional controls you guys get on the compositing side of things. You saw how quick and easy we put 5 of these into play. You have multiple options of fire blasts to pick from. You got orientation control for those just tuning in. You can actually rotate your animation here three-dimensionally. You have the ability to toggle on and off the sparks or the fire or the smoke independently. Real useful stuff. And, I don't have the best system, but it's not doing so bad chomping through this cache preview. If I was doing this with Trapco Particular, which is what we use to make this product, I'd be looking at hours and hours. What I would do is I would work until bedtime, hit export and then go to bed. And sometimes in the morning it was still trying to figure itself out. And so this has saved me a ton of time. I'm okay with the length of time that this is taking. But just for sanity's sake, we're going to go ahead and just see what it looks like here. Looking nice. Okay, so what other controls do we have? Okay, if I drop down that Essential Properties tab for the first blast, I'm going to just shut off all of the other ones for now. And if we go under the Essential Properties and I toggle up the Fire Blast setup, you've got 4 more drop-downs. And the first one is your fire and smoke settings. And inside of that drop-down, you have 3 more drop-downs. Everything's organized. You work top to bottom here in this case. The first one's your fire controls, okay? So if I just go a little bit ahead in time until we've got the meat and the of our Fire Blast in view, and I'll just bump this back up to full res here for you. You've got a lot of controls right out the gate. The first is your fire color. So if I start to change this value, you're going to see that I can actually start to change the color of our fire. And I'm just going to drop this again to half real quick so that it's got an easier time working through these colors. You guys see, you guys can completely control the color choice of your fire. And so now you're not just making fire blast effects, you're making Harry Potter spells, you're doing various different things. Really the imagination's the only barrier that you guys are left to try and break, but you guys can control the fire. And one real neat thing is you've got the way that we've built this with these controls. If you guys made a mistake or changed a setting and you don't know really what you did wrong, you can just click this little icon here next to the fire color or any of these values, and it's got a down arrow. It will actually just download the original value that I gave you guys in the product. And this upward arrow button is what's going to save us some time here in a little bit, but I'll show you guys what that is in a little while. The next is the fire tint, okay? And one of the hardest things that I had to deal with as I grew as a visual effects compositor is teaching myself how to composite things that weren't in the original shot into the scene. And perfect example, like I said, we run a movie theater here, and my daughter wanted to watch Clifford. Clifford had just came out. Grox1, hello, I'm from Uruguay. Thanks, Grox, for tuning in. Welcome. Very excited to have you here. Got any questions or anything like that? Just type them in on the comments. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and we'll see you next time, of course. That being said, Clifford, he's running around in the park and he's got shadows casting onto the ground. He's blocking sunlight, obviously. And the compositors did a really good job, in my opinion, of comping in the shadows, right? Like they weren't sharp until his feet touched the ground. As he raised his legs, they got softer, they got wider and bigger. They got darker as his feet got closer to the ground. But when his feet were in full contact with the ground, the darkness of the shadow didn't match everything else in the scene in the background that was, blocking light and casting shadows, particularly the trees. Now, this just might be me having the unfortunate situation where I notice those things now because I do this, and I've done it for so long. Clearly, the general audience, my daughter included, isn't going to just be staring at the background at some trees and wondering why they didn't take the time to make the shadow color match. But the same applies for any 3D object you add to a scene. There's a brightest point or a bright color in the shot, from the sun or whatever lighting they have. And there's the darkest shadowy areas of that comp. And when you put things in and they have darker shadows or brighter highlights or both, it just sticks out kind of like a sore thumb. The average consumer isn't going to be able to kind of put their mind to what's wrong, but that's typically the reason. And so that's why under fire tint, if we turn that up, we can, turn the desaturate the blast. But that being said, I also want to respect the brightest and the darkest shadowy or highlighted areas in the scene because that's where our light's coming from. So you guys just for the highlights, you click this little swatch, you'll pick the brightest point of your footage. In fact, I'm just going to shut off the view here so that none of the glow is affecting it. And then for the shadows, I'm just going to pick a dark spot that I think is probably close to the darkest spot. I'll click into them and I'll just pull their saturation down so that, they go all the way to the black area. Same thing here with the highlights, it's already pretty close, but we'll just pull the saturation to 0. And now, when I turn this back on, when I start doing things to affect the tint, it's now clamping those values. These bright spots in the fire blast will not be brighter than anything else in the scene. Same thing for the smoke and the shadows. And that really just helps pull everything together and round everything off. And so that's just something that I wanted to make sure that I included with the product. And I'm going to make adjustments to these settings kind of as we go through and kind of explain what I'm doing. The fire's a little red. I'm not sure how it's coming across on your guys' end, so I'm just going to bump this value up, which will push it more toward a yellowish or orange color. I think that looks a little neater for what I'm after. Our fire sharpness, obviously, if I zoom in here and go back to full res, if it's at 50% by default, but if I were to bump that up, it's going to sharpen the contrast lines. If I take it all the way down, it's going to kind of, blend everything out. I'm going to just leave that at its default 50%. Our contrast, you guys should know what contrast is. The famous S curve. Andrew Kramer makes the joke that he doesn't know why people use levels adjustments instead of curves adjustments. If you guys know what I'm talking about, you'll find some comedy and some humor there. But contrast essentially is that range of transition between your bright spots and your dark spots of your animation. So if I bump up the contrast, you're going to see here it makes the fire look punchier. There we go. We've got, we've essentially clamped that transition between bright and dark. I'm again just going to leave it at 25%. Our compound blur is the blurriness. If I turn that all the way up, you're going to see here that it just blurs out our animation, right? So we'll leave that at default for right now. And we'll toggle up the fire controls. That's the control you guys get there. Color, contrast, saturation, tint, things like that. The next is our smoke controls. And the smoke controls essentially control these darker shadowy areas that make up the backdrop or it really would give dimension to our fire animation. And so the contrast is, just essentially how punchy it is. If I turn that down, you're going to see here that it actually makes the fire a bit transparent because there's no smoke. It's like turning the opacity for the smoke off. And the same thing for the dispersion. What the dispersion does is control like how the smoke spreads, right? And it softens as it spreads. So if I punch that all the way up, you're going to see a similar effect, just not as noticeable, and mainly in the trail of our fire blast simulation here. So we'll just leave those default for now, but we're going to come back to those here in a little bit. There's going to be a reason why we want to have that control. Our gamma and exposure, gamma correction, just how the light and the color interacts with everything else. Right, you can kind of see the differences as I move through those. And the boost exposure, that's just allowing us to put in a little bit more exposure to the effect. I think it's already kind of intense, so we're just going to leave those default as well. And that's it for the fire and smoke settings. You guys get those controls and you can keyframe them, and we'll get into that here in a minute. The next drop down is our glow settings, okay? And this is where things get real fun. You've got, look, 6 different controls here. The first being our intensity of the large glow, which is this outer glow. If I turn that all the way down, what you'll see is that outer glow diminishes. You also have the radius. If I turn the radius down, say cut it in half, you're going to see that it's going to pull in the spread of that outer glow and make it hug nice and tight to our fire simulation. And that has a value of 0 to 1,000. So we can spread that out real high, almost to the point where you don't even notice it anymore. So again, I'm just going to leave it at 400. I put a lot of thought into the values that I was going to set here for each of these by default, just to make things a little, out of the box, ready to go. The next is our core intensity. That's going to be our inner glow, right? The things that are really kind of isolated around these bright spots, as well as the range or the spread of that under the radius. And then we've got our core glow threshold. Now it's set to 40 at default. If I turn it all the way up, it's going to clamp all of our glow. If I turn it all the way down, it's going to do the exact opposite. It's going to make our glow really, really intense, okay? So that's what that control does. And to show you what the light glare does, I'm going to just toggle off our footage here. If we turn that up from 0, it's going to add kind of this, this streak. It might be a little hard to see, but it adds just kind of like almost like a lens distortion where the light is being distorted by the lens as it passes through. The next drop down, the last one that we're going to cover here is our heat distortion settings. And by default, I've got it turned off. We can turn that on. And you're going to see a subtle change here. I'll zoom in, off, on. We can increase the strength of the heat distortion. We can turn up the haze. We can turn up or down the complexity and also the micro heat ripple value, which are those small little sputtery heat ripple distortions that you guys would normally see. With the heat distortion settings here, I'm just going to go ahead and just pull back the defaults, which resets all of these values. Again, just something that we built in at the core just to give you guys a quick and easier way to move through this. Now, let's just make a couple tweaks here because I want to show you guys why these controls are important in the first place. Let's think for a second what happens when you actually film something explode fire-wise with a real camera, okay? Your camera is set up and exposed not for this big, huge fire blast, right? And so it's going to lose its color. It's going to be really blown out, blurry, and it's going to take a couple of seconds for your sensor or your camera to auto-adjust itself to, adjust for that change, that sudden change in light. So underneath our fire and smoke settings here, we're going to drop down the fire controls, and we're just going to turn the tint all the way up here at the beginning of the animation. It's going to pretty much just take all the color out of the mix, and we'll set a keyframe for that. And in fact, before we do that, let's do this. Let's set a keyframe for the color, the tint, the sharpness, the contrast, the blur maybe. We'll go into the smoke controls. We'll set one for the contrast and dispersion, and we'll set keyframes for all of the glow because I want to have those default values here. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to push them ahead in time so that I've preserved those. And so now here earlier on in the timeline, when I make changes such as the desaturation process of just bumping up the tint, what's going to happen is it's going to go back to normal over the course of this animation. And we'll move these back over once we've got a sense of the time and how fast we want that transition to take place. The next thing that I might do here is just go to the fire sharpness, and we're going to turn that down. Doesn't need to be as sharp. We might turn the blur up a little bit because we don't want the detail there. The camera can't focus in and actually figure out what it is. We'll turn the contrast down to remove any sort of contrast differences, although you can't really see it yet. We will leave the smoke contrast and the smoke dispersion alone for now because that's meant for toward the end of the sim. We're going to, let's see here, we'll pull in the radius of the outer glow to get it to hug tighter, to make it seem brighter in the moment. We'll probably pull the threshold down, right, to give it, a brighter introduction, right? This is what would happen if you actually filmed fire. And I think that's probably good here for the time being. I think that that's going to serve us nicely. So now moving forward until we've got the chunk of the animation in view, say about right here, I'm going to select all these keyframes we set the values for or preserve the defaults, and we're just going to shift them down to this point in time. And so now we're going to have that gradual shift to that bright, super overexposed, non-contrasted look with the glow and everything else. And we'll just take a look at what that looks like here. We'll render out a quick cache preview. Customer walking out the door. Sorry about the background noise. Let's see what that looks like. Looking good. I think the glow is a little intense here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn that glow threshold back up a bit so it's not as, you know, intense, maybe to about 20 or 25 or so. Default, I think, was 40. Oh, that was the light glare. Oops a daisy. We'll take this 9% value and just make sure that I'm at the right layer. We're going to turn that back up to like 25 or so. Yeah, that pulls it in. Maybe pull it in just a little bit more. Something like that. Let's see what that looks like. We're just setting 2 keyframes. One at the beginning and one toward the end for each of these animations. You're going to see that color comes back in. There we go. Let's check it out. Looking good. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the way that that looks. Now, I promised that we were going to be checking out the smoke dispersion process, and I have to turn Punch 2 on to show you guys why that's important. But toward the end of this animation, you're going to have this lingering smoke here, and it covers over top of the next pass here. So what we might want to do is dropping back down those controls on this top layer, we'll go down to the smoke contrast, okay? And we are going to just bump down the contrast to make it more transparent, and we might bump up the dispersion. Let's just set both to 50%. One was at the extreme low end, one was at the extreme high end. Let's just average them both out. And so now it's not going to cover over top of that next animation and essentially cause it to be washed out. Okay, so let's check that out real quick with both of those turned on. I think we're golden. I think we're golden. I think that serves the purpose that I was trying to achieve. Now, guess what, guys? We're done. Practically done. Okay, that took maybe about 15 minutes or so to go through and keyframe all of that. But guess what? Each of these layers is referencing original source values, original keyframe values even, should I have baked those in. And so if I were to just click into any one of these comps, you're going to see here inside of it, there's our wizard tool, and then we've got our Fire Blast controls layer. And on that lives the effect file that I created here. And you're going to see by default, it has all of those default settings. You're actually not changing any of these because if you changed it here, each of those Fire Blast animations would also change. So if I chose, say, Fire Blast 1, every time I dragged a new copy of this into effect, by default, it would have Fire Blast 1. And so the same applies here on the back end. I've just made all of these changes here, right, under the Fire Blast setup as an example. And guess what? The animations are the same. They're made by the same person. They all have the same color and contrast and exposure. They're essentially just duplicates of each rendering from different angles. And so we can actually write these new values and these new keyframes from this first instance we made and persist it. And now all of the other animations that we have will carry into existence with those same values. And so we don't have to go and redo this 4 more times. Instead, we can go to the fire color and we can push this push to primary comp button. We can do it for the tint. We can do it here for, it looks like the fire sharpness, the fire contrast. I'm just going through where the blue stopwatches are highlighted. We can do it here for the compound blur. We'll do it the smoke controls here are all under one layer, so we can actually just push on the smoke control, push to comp, and it will push the values inside. Under our glow settings, we'll do the same thing. We'll just push all of those values. And so these keyframes live here on this layer, but you're going to see now, guess what? Those values just got imposed onto the source comp that all of these reference, okay? And so if I hit the U key with Punch 2 selected, you're going to see all those keyframes exist there now too as well. And if I made a tweak here independently, it would just change the values on this instance, right? So as we scrub forward here in time, looking at the end here where the smoke dispersion starts to kick away, I might want to just check and make sure that that looks okay to me, that it's not, dissolving too quickly. Same thing here as I turn on. all of these other layers, you'll see that those values have also been baked in, right? So that third kick now, if I scrub back in time here a bit, kick one, actually I got to go forward in time, excuse me. You're going to see here that it also has that blown, overexposed. Give my computer a second here to catch up. Again, guys, I am streaming off this same system. So if I go back in time here a little bit, you're going to see that, it essentially gradually turns brighter. And because it's out of frame here toward the beginning, we actually might want to do an adjustment here. So we'll go to kick one. Any changes we make will persist, in their own selected layer. It won't actually affect anything else unless we tell it to. So what we'll do is we will just take all of these fire controls and maybe the glow controls as well. And we're just going to shift those ahead in time, right? Until, it starts to affect the look of our fire. And this won't change any of those other layers because we'd have to actually push this to take over the original value. And so we're gonna shift down the fire smoke contrast and smoke dispersion down as well, so that it doesn't dissolve the smoke too soon. And I'm in full res. I'm gonna just jump to half res here. It'll go a lot quicker, I think. Yeah. And yeah, I think it's getting rid of that too soon. And so what we're gonna do here is we're just going to push this even further, just grabbing all of those values. We might not even need it, honestly, because of, when it comes into play with the next animation. But just some tweaks, just some little settings, right? We saved time by essentially superimposing all of those effects and the values we keyframed into every other instance, but we have the ability to tweak and adjust it. And so that's just what I'm doing here in the process. Same thing here, I think. This one starts to dissolve a little quick, so I'll hit U to bring up the keyframes, and I'm going to find our our smoke contrast and dispersion, and I'm just going to push it down in time a little bit so that it doesn't dissolve away as quickly. And then we're just going to check out the last one now. And the last one, I don't think I'm even going to mess with at all because it ends out our animation and it goes to black, so I think we'll be okay. Actually, I can kind of see through that a little bit too much. So we'll hit U to bring up the keyframes for kick 3 here. And I'll take those same smoke contrast and dispersion keyframes and I'll just push them down in the timeline. It's not one size fits all, but we do save a bit of time either way. So we're just going to shove that down to keep that that contrast packed into the effect. Okay, all the way to the end when it fizzles out. So I think we're done there for that respect. There's just a couple other tidy things that we can do. We'll just go over those real quick. I think that if we turn on the motion blur for these first couple shots, for the first couple of frames when there's a lot of quick movement, we just turn on the motion blur for all of those, and that'll help, solidify the effect a little bit. I'll go back up to full res. The other thing I can do is right here, this control for quality and sampling. If I just turn them all to have this curve here, it's actually going to enhance the reserved quality for like our sparks and stuff. And I think that's probably about it. I'm just going to go ahead here and check on the comments. Doesn't look like anybody else has commented. Some of you guys are still tuning in. I appreciate that. If you guys are just finding this, it looks like there's been a few hundred who've watched it. Unfortunately, we did get the stream to cut out a little bit ago. But this product gives you guys a lot of control. I'm just going to recap it one more time while we wait for this to export or make the preview. Never before have you guys been able to get a product that gives you more than just the one clip that you're looking for at the one angle, with all of the right components like the sparks and the fire, whatever. 4K footage like this for that one shot at that one angle, it'd run you about $100. We've got 5 here. That's $500 I would have spent to get this final result. I would have also had to spend the time going in and manually adding all of the effects like the glow and the lighting on the actor, the heat distortion. I would have to manually go and apply all of those effects to get this final result, not to mention all the keyframing and just time spent doing that. And so what this does is it packs all of that in as well. It's over 100, I think it's 129 different effects, and there's probably 20 plus compositions here in this do not edit folder, and so that's all packed in as well. So you guys get full orientational control. You have all of the effects pre-composited in. You guys control all of that from a single layer, right? You don't have to dig around, and I can illustrate just how much of a time saver that is. If I go into like the export comp here, one of these back comps, you're going to see all these layers, right? That's just one of these comps. If I click on any of those, look at all the effects that are applied to any one of these layers. This is what I mean when I say it takes years of experience knowing how to pull this all together, right? And to extrapolate the values here all the way up to our top comp, right? Or in this case, this one single layer, and having you get the ability to just tweak those all from simple slider controls is where the value is packed in there. You don't need the 17 years experience I have to package that and put it all together. It's built for you already, and it's layered into just this one comp. It's just this single uh, it's a single comp here, Stock 3D Fireblast, that we just kept dragging down. You have the ability to pull in the preset values for any of those if you mess something up, as well as the ability to push those to the comp that these all reference, the layer that's a little bit deeper, where the actual effect file I created lives. And so it's there, it's ready to go. We keyframed the position, scale, and orientation of all of these in less than 10 keyframes each. So it only took about 20-25 minutes to actually get the the fire blast going in the right angle. You got 4 different fire blasts you can choose from. We added some rotation to this one, which does some cool stuff with the sparks. You have the ability to toggle on all of those independently for those just tuning in under the Fire Blast setup drop down here. There's Fire Blast layers, and you can toggle on and off the sparks if you don't need the sparks. Give it a second here to catch up to me. I am in full res, and I'm pushing my computer. But I can toggle on and off the sparks. I can toggle on and off the exploding flames, which is the trail. I can toggle on and off the fire and smoke, all independently. And those are persisted in independent instances each time you use this. So it's not actually changing and persisting that change, causing you to export just the one fire blast and then go in and do the next one and then the next one and then putting them all back together. You guys can essentially edit them independently and then push the settings you like to that master comp so that they essentially are copied, right? We only did the keyframes on this one layer for all of the controls like the glow and stuff. And you see, once we push those values, each of these instances had those keyframes copied over. And so if you're just tuning in and you missed all that, don't worry. You guys can go back and rewatch this video. You can go to stock3d.net, which is where I have this product available for sale. And there's a overview video tutorial about 40 minutes long, much less time taken out of your day than this live stream was. But it walks you through all of those same features. The $500 I was talking about saving, this product is $25 right now. If you go to stock3d.net, you can get everything that you see here, and you guys can go and try this out for yourself. And the barriers are shattered, right? You have full fidelity and control. You don't need the years of experience, and you're not going to just destroy the bank account in the process. So that's what we mean. Creative Cow started that movement in terms of making things more affordable, more accessible in a time where the internet was still very young. YouTube did not exist. And now we're on YouTube all these years later talking about just one more thing that's been added to the mix that, helps make things more accessible, affordable, easy to use so that a kid in high school can literally pull out the phone he's got in his pocket that his parents bought for him, overpaid for, if I could say. It's got a 4K camera on it. Go out with your friends, guys. Go run around in the yard, make a cool video, shoot some footage. Pick this up for 25 bucks. If you don't have After Effects, they have a 14-day free trial you can get on adobe.com. Download that. You got nothing to lose other than 25 bucks on a couple hours of your time. And with the pandemic and everybody kind of still being on lockdown, depending on where you live, I'm sure you all are a bit stir crazy. But in conclusion, guys, I guess I should just kind of close out. This is what Creative Cow Live is all about. It is not to push my products. This is just an introduction to who I am and what I'm capable of making. I wanted to give you guys something just, cheap and affordable. It's not always going to be $25. It's just kind of like a limited time thing. So that is my friendly gesture to you guys. We are going to be making these tutorial series every week. We're going to go live and we're going to create cool effects and we're going to interact with you guys and answer questions and all of that fun stuff. So subscribe and tune into those. Again, it's not just going to be me pitching products to you guys every week. It's going to be us talking about how to create all of the coolest visual effects you guys can think of, all in After Effects. Moving forward, and hopefully we get some other creators out there excited enough to also want to contribute in this way, to make a Premiere tutorials or ones for DaVinci Resolve. We want to grow this and make this a big movement and bring Creative Cow back to that bleeding edge. In terms of its value that it provides, it does not have to always be a forum forever and ever, because it will die that way, I think. And so that's what we're trying to achieve with you guys here. We have the Creative Cow Live show that's going to be coming out soon. We're going to be bringing on special guests, industry leaders, people who work, at a much higher pedigree than I do. We're going to be bringing you guys industry news and all the information about new tips and tricks and products that are available that continue to shatter those barriers. Again, not just a shameless self promotion like we did today here. But this was just my humble attempt at providing you guys something of value, getting you guys excited about what I'm trying to do to change, and with stock footage in this case to make things more affordable and accessible for folks. You don't have to chomp through 12 hours of bricking your computer. We've got the new show coming as well. It's all going to be right here on the Creative Cow YouTube channel, under that banner, Creative Cow Live. So guys, definitely, stay tuned for that. We want your support. You guys have supported us for 20 years. I've been so humbled and have got the wonderful opportunity of helping the Creative Cow out with just promoting what they are and bringing it into the future. I want you guys to do that too. I'm a little winded right now. I think I've been talking for a little while too long, and so I think it's that time where we get ready to say goodbye. I think I can probably just fit in a couple more seconds here while this animation finishes off. But what do you guys think? Before we jump off, if you guys are still tuning in, jump in the comment section real quick. Do me a favor. Tell me what you think of this. For what you were able to see. If you guys didn't catch the whole thing, you can watch it later. And give me an idea for another tutorial. Is there an effect in a movie that you just recently saw that you guys want to know how to create? Throw it at me. Let me hear it. There's 4 of you guys on here right now. There's been a lot of people hopping back and forth on and off. And we did have that unfortunate situation where the stream dropped. But if you're here right now, or if you're watching, after we stop the live stream, give me some ideas, because next week when we jump back on here, I want to bring you guys another tutorial that shows you guys that a little bit more behind the veil, right? We got the new Spider-Man movie coming out. We've got we just had the what is it? The Eternals movie. It's still playing in theaters here. Lots of great tutorials that I'm sure you guys are racking your brain around or hoping that somebody makes. So looks like our animation here is finished. We'll just go ahead and play it back. And there's that end result, guys. Didn't take long at all. I think it was mostly extended by all the talking that I do. But again, just in conclusion, guys, this is Creative Cow Live. There's tons more exciting things coming. We're going to have tutorials every week where we go live and we interact with you guys. We walk you guys through as I stumble around trying to figure out how to create those effects. If you guys have ideas, send them to us. Write them in the comments. I'll be sure to read them and put those into consideration. If you guys like this product, check it out, stock3d.net. You can pick up this product and literally, with no time at all, create this exact type of effect with your friends or for your job. And it's $25 right now. So best value you're ever going to find with stock footage. And that's just my gift to you, my introduction of who I am. And if you guys support this this standard, I'm going to keep making new ones. I think we're going to be doing a 3D wound pack where you guys can do like post-production wounds. We're going to be doing weather packs so you can change the weather, make it stormy, rain, clouds, lightning, thunder, maybe a tornado, I don't know, something crazy. You'll still have that rotational and orientation control. Everything will be 4K, high frame rate, so you guys can do slow motion effects. And that is just the standard, right, for each of those different types of effects. That's what we want to provide to you guys. We got Grok's Run, excuse me, Garant G, hello from Earth. Well, hello, sir. I am also from Earth. I think. I don't know. Anyway, guys, again, thank you guys for tuning in. I'd like to say welcome to the pasture. Feel free to graze around, and we'll see you next time.